Today gamers, we're going to be jumping back into the world of Diablo 4 and taking a little look at all of the uniques we now know are in the game. There's 11 that the developers have shown us, and we're going to be taking a look at just how powerful these truly are. Welcome back everyone. Today we're going to be diving back into a little bit Diablo 4 and we're going to be taking a look at all of the uniques that we've been shown over by the team at Blizzard. Some of which look like they can truly change your build up and make you insanely overpowered. Up until yesterday we'd been shown 8 in total, but yesterday they brought out another video and now we've got 3 additional ones. So we're going to be going over all 11 today and just how good, or maybe not good, they truly are. Now these first lot, all of these are going to be ancestral, so remember the specs on them will be slightly higher. Whereas the last 3 we're going over, they're just standard uniques, so if you can get them later on at that ancestral level, their stats will definitely be raised a bit more. To kick it off with, we're going to be going over some gloves that look like they could be absolutely amazing for some fire sorcerer builds, and these are going to be gloves of the Illuminator. These come with a critical strike chance between 3 and 8%, plus to your fireball attack speed, which can range from 4.2 to 7%, lucky hit, which can roll from 7 to 14%, which is actually quite high, and plus 3 ranks of fireball. Obviously this is a Sorc unique, you're not going to be trying to get hold of this unless you're going down that fire route, but it does look like it's got a really nice feature to it, and that's the last one here. Fireball now bounces as it travels, exploding each time it hits the ground, but its explosions deal 65% less damage. Now at first I looked at this and I wasn't too sure about it. Obviously it's got between 75 to 65% less damage. Anytime there's less damage to an item, it kind of makes you raise your eyebrows a little bit, but this one I think could work very well. Obviously it's intended for groups of mobs and it's going to be about AoE clears rather than taking on a single boss. The fact that it has actually got so much less damage as well leads me to believe that there will be quite a few bounces, maybe around 6, maybe even more than that. But I think this could definitely work for group clears, especially if you're probably chucking on that enchantment with fireball effect as well, as hopefully that tends to proc another explosion, which we'll have to see. It depends if this just hits the floor like it says, or if it hits other enemies as well. But ultimately this may well be one to watch out for if you're trying to clear through lots of mobs and you're going down that fire sorcery route. Jumping over to a necromancer item, and we've got the blood artisan's cuirass. This one is quite an interesting piece to go over. It comes with extra damage between 7 to 14% for 4 seconds after picking up a blood orb. So this is definitely a blood build orientated piece of gear, but it definitely looks very unique to me. It also gives you between 10.5 to 17.5% on your blood orb healing, and can give you all the way up to 7.3% extra total armour, so it's pretty nice at negating a bit of damage as well as giving you some significant healing. Another great thing whenever you get these on things is going to be ideal, is going to be plus ranks to your bone spirits between 2 to 3. Very much a piece of gear you'll probably be after if you're trying to really go down that bone spirit route, especially when we check out the next bit. And that's going to be when you pick up between 10 to 5 blood orbs, a free bone spirit is spawned, dealing bonus damage based on your current life percentage. So by the looks of that, the higher is going to be the better, it's going to do a lot of damage. You've got a nice free bone spirit, so that's absolutely ideal, especially late game if enemies are absolutely wiping the floor with you and knocking your minions about, because now apparently they have got reduced health and such, so I think this may well be a fun one to play around with. The only thing, I think you'll need a very dedicated build for this. It wouldn't be something you just slot into a build, you'd have to tailor it around this piece of gear. But if you're going down that path and you're trying to spec into your bone spirits, this could definitely be one that does a lot of damage kind of late game. Jumping over to a unique item that is solely placing defense at the top of the charts, and that's going to be Temerity. This waste item, I would say, looks absolutely insane. It really does look like it could save your class, and obviously we haven't seen everything in the game yet, but I would say this is probably going to be one of the best defensive options in the game. So for the affixes, whilst injured, your potion also grants 30% movement speed for 2 seconds. It also gives you plus to all of your stats between 10 to 18. It's going to give you a nice bit of extra potion drop rate between 12 to 26%, so if you get that high you're going to be dropping a lot of potions on the floor, which is ridiculously good for this item, which we'll get to later. Lucky hit up to a 5% chance to heal for a certain amount of your life, and also ups your healing received between 7 to 14%. As you can see, absolutely loads of healing and health going on in this one, but the absolute icing on the cake is going to be the next part. The effects that heal you beyond 100% life grant you a barrier up to, and it says between 40 to 80% of your maximum life that lasts for 8 seconds. Now this is just kind of crazy to me. If it's worded how I think, even though it's only 8 seconds, it doesn't say it's got any cooldown effect. It looks like anytime you're healing with your potions or anything in your kit that's able to bring you above 100% health, I would hazard a guess if you've got 80% health, you use a potion that's going to top it up 40%, it classes that as healing above. Otherwise I don't actually know how you'd proc this effect, so let me know in the comments if I'm wrong with that. But yeah, being able to get a barrier, if you can do this whenever you want, knowing that you can hold quite a few potions in your build already, and with the extra potion drop rate, this may well be one of the best items in the game for just survivability and making sure you've always got a barrier up whenever you want it. Also, there's quite a few other things that come into play with this. You're able to get extra damage when you've got a barrier up, you're able to get extra effects due to other aspects and skills within classes kits. I think this is going to be a very fun one to use, and I could see a lot of people aiming for this, especially for that very late game when things get tricky and you're going to need a lot of damage reduction. Now, saving what I would say is probably the best till last for the armor pieces. Here we've got a helmet slot, and it's going to be the Harlequin Crest. You'll probably know it as the Shako. This is just crazy. It's made it into this game, and the stats on it are definitely something you want to look at. A maximum amount of your life, which looks like quite a significant chunk, but even better than that is going to be it also gives you some cooldown reduction between 4.4% all the way up to 10%. If you can get that 10% on this or anywhere near that, this is going to be an absolute god roll of an item, because cooldown is very hard to get in this game by the looks of it. Making things even easier for your build, it also gives you a certain amount of resource generation, between 5% to 12%. This is going to be very strong. Not only now can you spam your skills a little bit more, but you're also able to generate a bit more resources. After that, we've got plus to its stats between 20 to 28, again rounding your build off, but the best thing out of all of them is going to be this last part. Gain between 10 to 20% damage reduction. In addition, gain 4 ranks to all of your skills. Not a certain skill, not a certain type of skills, every single skill that you've unlocked. Now you're going to get 4 ranks on top of those. That, alongside the damage reduction for this, I think is going to make this one of the most sought after items in the game, and will be able to make for some ridiculously powerful builds, just because of how many ranks it gives to all of those skills. So yeah, definitely something to look out for. If you figure out how to farm for the head slot, make sure you're aiming for this, as it will be a lot of fun to slot into your build, and will tick pretty much all of the boxes, as it gives you versatility, damage and damage reduction all in one package. So from the armor pieces, we're now jumping across to the weapons, and we've got 2 to look at. The first one is going to be the waxing Gibbous. This is going to be a unique axe. Now it starts off great with 28% damage to healthy enemies, and it comes with a set amount of critical strike damage, a set amount of damage close to your enemies, which is always good whenever you can have that with your close range builds. Also damage to injured enemies up to 35%, which can be quite nice for finishing off those enemies, and between 53 to 127 life on kill, allowing you to top up on your health a bit as you're taking your enemies out. Finally, you're going to gain stealth for 2 seconds when killing enemies with Shred. Breaking stealth with an attack grants ambush, which guarantees critical strikes for anywhere between 1 to 2.5 seconds. And as you can see, this one's for Druid only. This one to me looks like it could be very powerful in those werewolf builds for the Druid, because it seems like you're going to have almost permanent uptime with that ambush. So you're going to have almost guaranteed critical strikes by the looks of it. This may well be a weapon that Druids want to invest in if they want to spec a little bit out of the crit chance, but keep the crit damage with their build. That way it's going to have its full effect, and you might have a bit more viability with your ring slots and such, using them for more unique items, ones that may not even need crit. It's going to be really good whenever you manage to get hold of this. We're just going to have to see how it holds up at late game, because it probably depends how high you can actually get all of that shred damage. Next up, and over to one that I am very interested in as someone who's going to be maining a barbarian as soon as the game's out. This unique 2-handed mace, the Overkill, looks very fun to play with. It comes with a set amount of overpower damage, 63%, which is nice and high, 26% physical damage, 54% overpower damage again, probably making an overpower build something you should be looking at if you've got this, and between 42% to 70% damage to injured enemies. Because it's going to be based on one of the skills later on, you'll understand why it is on that damage to injured rather than healthy, even though personally I do love to see the healthy effect a lot more than this. But as well as that, got between 9 to 24% critical strike chance against injured enemies. Massive amounts, but the main reason you're going to be using this is going to be for the last thing here, and that's going to be its death blow. This creates a shockwave of dealing between 16 to 30% of its base damage to all enemies within it. Enemies who die to this effect also reset the death blows cooldown, very similar to if you bonked them on the head, but now obviously you've got a nice AoE effect. I think this, with how hard death blow actually hits, could be something you'd really want to build around, as you may well be able to one-shot pretty much every enemy and mob as you're clearing through. Ultimately, it all depends how much the fall off is late game with that death blow. If you can't make it do over a certain amount of damage, so that one-shot possibility, or I think there is actually an aspect that allows you to have 2 uses of it, but basically if you can't kill the enemies with the death blow in 1 or 2 hits, then this will start to lose its significance and it will go from absolutely amazing to not so good very fast. So it all depends how the builds work late game with your barbarian and how much damage you can pull off. If you can make it work, this may well be one of the most powerful things in the game, and I'd love to actually see how much you hit the world bosses with at certain points with this. Again, if you can't make your damage quite as substantial and you're not able to get those kills with it, this will be a fun item, but not one that's super necessary. Now for our next one, we've got the Word of Hakan, which is a unique amulet. This one comes with resist all elements, a certain amount of non-physical damage, ultimate skill damage, which is really nice to see, between 14 to 21%, will actually be very helpful as the ults do a lot of damage in this, as well as critical strike damage with your imbued skills, between 14 to 21%. It also gives between 1 to 2 ranks of all imbuement skills, so it's very much an amulet based around the rogue. Now the reason you'd be using this is going to be if you're speccing into that rain of arrows. Your rain of arrows is always imbued with all imbuements at once now. That is a really cool thing to see. I want to see how that works, and this looks like it's going to make that skill from, I would say, a little bit on the mediocre side currently to one you may well be able to invest in. You're going to have a lot of AoE going on, you're now going to have all the imbuements at once without needing to do anything. They're going to be up constantly, and of course you've got those extra 2 ranks to all of the skills. This looks like something that could do a lot of extra damage and something you may well want to centre the build around. Now over a unique ring that's called the Mother's Embrace. This comes with 25% fire resistance, 25% shadow resistance, and plus to all of your stats between 10 to 18. It also has a bit of lucky hit chance between 3.2 to 6%, and can give you critical strike damage between 14 to 21%. Also provides a nice bit of overpower damage, so if you're going down that overpower route again, this may be something to look at, and it gives you between 14 to 28 on that. Lastly, the main reason you'll be picking this up, as I think this looks a little bit like it's a dungeon clearer or farming ring. If a core skill hits 5 or more enemies, between 20 to 40% of the resource cost is going to be refunded. This is a nice ring. It really is a very good ring to have on. It may not work in every build because it doesn't have a few of the stats you're probably after, such as the crit chance on rings, but if you're putting a build together that's more centered around that overpower damage, or maybe you're just trying to farm enemies for drops, this could be something you want to look at, as it means you may well be able to maintain your resources at all times with the right setup, I'd imagine. Now jumping over to the 3 new uniques that we've seen from yesterday, and the first one I think looks absolutely amazing. Now this one has been upgraded 4 times, so bear that in mind, but ultimately it comes with dexterity, it comes with cooldown reduction. Again, like we said, cooldown reduction is going to be very difficult to get hold of, so anytime you get a piece of gear with that on, it's going to be pretty special already. And this one also has crowd control duration, maximum energy, which is again very good, and you gain a certain amount of increased lucky hit chance against crowd controlled enemies. This one's got 24%. That is very high, so you may well be able to spec around that and hit very high levels, almost guaranteeing that lucky hit. Definitely looks like could be a lot of fun to put into certain playstyles, and if you're building around lucky hit, this will definitely be something you want to look at, especially seeing as it's got that cooldown involved as well. This is another weapon that first appeared I believe in Diablo 2, as with a lot of these uniques they brought quite a few back into this game. This time we have the unique bow Windforce. This one comes with 23% damage to distant enemies, plus to all of your stats, plus to your core skill damage, 25% damage to distant enemies, which is actually very good because obviously you're going to be playing at range, and plus 2 ranks of the Impetus passive. I would imagine probably if this goes up to Ancestral that will boost up to a 4, I can't guarantee it but I'm guessing it probably will. And the last bit is going to be again lucky hit. Hits with this weapon have up to an 18% chance to deal double damage and knock back the target. Like we've seen, it looks like Rogue's going to have a lot to do with lucky hit chance, and being able to deal double damage and knock back the target may actually be very significant. So this could actually be one to watch out for, especially if the percentage of that can be boosted quite high if you've got the Ancestral version. And lastly, very much keeping in line with the old Rogue class, we've got the Asheara's Khanjar, which if I'm pronouncing that wrong, let me know in the comments, I've probably butchered it. But this one gives you a nice bit of damage to close range enemies, it gives you 21% basic skill damage, 9% damage to crowd controlled enemies, 25% movement speed for 4 seconds after killing an elite. That one right there is very good, very high, and again it gives you 7% lucky hit chance. Judging from how things are going, lucky hit chance is probably going to be a recurring theme on Rogue, so this giving you more overall will definitely help to enhance that. And lastly, hits with this weapon increase your attack speed by 4.5 for 4 seconds, up to 22.5. 22.5 extra speed could definitely be a nice thing to have on your build. I don't know exactly what type of build you'd be going with this one with the Rogue, because it does seem to enhance a little bit of the basic skill damage and such, but overall the stats on this are actually pretty decent, so it could definitely be a nice one to put into a build, maybe even if you just wanted to activate that speed boost with the basic and then go into your other attacks. But yeah, that's all the ones I'm going to be covering today. That's everything we know so far. They are giving us a lot of sneak peeks lately, so I'm sure more will come down the line. Let me know in the comments if there's any of these uniques that you cannot wait to try out. And as always, for all things gaming, take care. I'll see you next day.